Welcome, everyone. We're going to allow a couple more people to join, but we're just so excited to have you, and we'll get started in about a minute or so after we've kind of adjusted a little. Okay, I'm going to get started. So good evening and welcome to Alumni Voices, Navigating First-Gen Journeys to Career Success. This is one of the many events that is taking place on campus during our First Generation Celebration Week. I encourage you to visit the First Gen website for information about all of the events that are happening. My name is Tara Molengraff, and I am the Program Director of First Generation Initiatives, and I have the honor of co-hosting this event with the Alumni Association and First Generation College Students at Michigan at Student Organization. We are so excited for you all to be here for this event. When we think about First Gen, it's always helpful to know who is considered First Gen at U of M. At Michigan, we define first-generation college students as students whose parents or guardians may have attended but did not graduate from a four-year school. This definition includes students who have siblings who attended college before them, or those whose parents have completed some college coursework or an associate's degree or are currently pursuing a college degree. At Michigan, this means that you're first gen. However, being first gen is not just about whether or not your parents went to college. It is also about the mindset that you bring with you when you come to college. At Michigan, we like to think about our first generation college students as trailblazers. Being a first generation college student means that you have taken a great leap of faith. You've decided to pursue an education to explore new opportunities and challenges because you wanted to discover what else was out there. We are very proud of our first generation college students and all that they accomplished both at Michigan and beyond. I want to provide us some data to give us a perspective on the size of the first gen population here at the University of Michigan. Of all U of M students who are first gen, 17% of undergrads are first generation college students. 21% of new transfer students are first gen, and 18% of first year students are first gen. 16% of new graduate students and 16% of all graduate students are also first gen. And I just want to note for the percentages about graduate students is that this is the data that is collected about graduate students, but not all schools and colleges collect this data. So it's a number that helps us understand the potential for how large the population is, but it's not as specific as we would like it to be. What I want to just mention is that this is a little over 5,000 students on our campus who shared the experience of being the first in their families to come to college. These graphs show a breakdown of who our first generation college students are. What this specifically shows is that first generation college students come from many different backgrounds and many experiences. There is not one single way to be a first generation college student. You get to define what being first gen means to you. No one else does. Now I'm going to pass it on to Judah, who is going to be the moderator of our panel.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Happy First Gen Week. My name is Judah Doty. I am the Associate Director of Affiliate Programs for the Alumni Association here at the wonderful University of Michigan. And I am joined by three lovely alumni who will join us in conversation as we talk about career, navigating the workplace, overcoming some barriers and achieving success. And so if you have questions while we're in conversation, I ask you to please post them in the chat, and we'll take about 5 minutes to respond to those questions. And so I will start with having each of our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll go into the question set. So anyone can start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vivian Taylor. I am a graduated in the class of 2020 during the pandemic, so it's kind of awesome to be a pandemic graduate. And I am an empowerment court coordinator with the Franklin County Juvenile Court.
Thank you, Vivian. Dr. Susan or Robert?
Sure.
Good evening. Oh, go ahead, Robert.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Robert Larios. I'm a graduate of 2000. In 2014, I got my executive MBA from the Ross School of Business, and I am presently the president and CEO of the LA City Employees Association and its subsidiary, the Employees Club of California. And what we do is we honor, celebrate, and give thanks to public service employees across California and hopefully soon across the country.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Susan Holmes Walker. I am a three-time nursing graduate at the School of Nursing with my BS and Master's and PhD. And I recently had a job change, Judah, which I should have updated you. So I actually currently work remotely for Oregon Health and Science University on a research project where I help veterans who have chronic pain find non-medicine alternatives to help improve their pain management. So that is me and what I do.
Well, thank you all for sharing. Let's jump into questions. We want to learn more about you and most certainly your career journey. So I'll just start with you, Dr. Susan, and then Vivian and Robert, you both can jump in after Dr. Susan responds. So Dr. Susan, can you briefly share your career journey since graduating? Congratulations on your recent role. And how did being a first-generation student shape your path?
So regarding my career, so I graduated with my BSN in 1989 from the university, and I started a career at the medical center on campus and stayed there for about 25 years. And so the good thing about being a U of M graduate is that there's so many resources in Ann Arbor that I didn't have to go far to find a great career opportunity. The other thing about nursing is that I've never been without a job, which is one of the reasons why I chose healthcare to be my career path. And I would say, as a first gen student, my parents, although as we know, the definition of first gen is that neither of your parents or guardians have a bachelor's degree, my parents were always strong proponents of obtaining higher education, especially for a woman, especially for a woman of color. They drilled into all of my siblings and I that education is the one thing that no one can take away from you. And so just those values, the importance of higher education is something that was pushed from day one, the value and importance of getting an education, which is something no one can take away from you.
That's right. Robert, can you share with us your career journey since graduating and how being a first-generation student shaped that path?
Absolutely. So a little bit of the background is I've been with this organization since actually graduating from USC, University of Southern California, back in 1997. And when in 2010, I asked leadership of my organization, what does it take to get to the C-suite? And so they said I had to get a high-powered MBA. And of course, in that year, or at that time, Michigan was looking to expand their education and programs nationwide, and I was fortunate to be part of their first inaugural class out of Los Angeles. I did visit on Ann Arbor several times, of course, especially my graduation and an orientation. It was very important for my family to experience that, of course, and for myself. But uh, and so then a year after I graduated, I did get into the C-suite. I became chief operating officer of the association, and the that experience at Ross School of Business really enforced something critical with me, that education is a lever for transformation, and it's also an experience of grit and overcoming obstacles. And then being first generation taught me to embrace discomfort, even during this time. I was already a seasoned professional, but it allowed me to ask questions without shame, and to never forget where I came from. Those lessons inform me how I lead today with empathy, authenticity, and a real relentless drive to help others unlock their potential. So my goal is to inspire people and turn their challenges into catalysts for an extraordinary life.
I love that. I also love this curiosity. I want to get to the C-suite. How can I do so? Right. And so asking that question gave you some guidance to the path that you are now excelling in, right? Vivian, how about you? Can you please share your career journey since graduating? And then how did being a first generation student shape that path for you?
Well, similar to Robert, I just wanted to level up my life. Um, I know prior to grad school, what made me go was that there were some companies and schools trying to hire me based off a wraparound grant that had came out in my city of Cleveland. And I mean, people were calling me on the phone. I didn't have to apply. They were like, "Oh, we got this job for you." But when everything came out the wash, as my mother would say, I couldn't accept the job because I didn't have the social work degree. And I went to some of my professors from undergrad and was like, this is the situation. I guess I need to get a master's degree in social work. And so one of my professors, Dr. Dover, was like, it could either be at Columbia or U of M. I chose the University of Michigan because it was closer to Ohio. Like I wanted to move, so I picked up and moved from Ohio to Michigan to attend the School of Social Work. Um, I would say my career journey since graduating has been what I envisioned it being and more, and that I've been able to obtain higher paying jobs. But with my Michigan experience, I've been able to develop and expand my skill set and knowledge base, which has carried me through my the 5 years that I've been working since. And I would say, as a first gen, what contributed to my success as well was like Robert, I was able to be open minded. I asked questions with no shame. I'm already resilient, so I experienced some challenges in grad school. But due to the resilience I already possessed as a first gen, I was able to navigate them and develop a system, and it all paid off.
Thank you all. I really appreciate your reflections, the curiosity again, that word keeps coming to me, the curiosity that all of you brought to your educational experiences, despite not having the shared experience of your parents navigating this journey. So I want to transition a little bit to talking about your early career. And I'll start with you, Robert. How did you approach the transition from college to your very first job? And what surprised you about entering the professional world? Or were there, if there were any surprises?
Well, there were several surprises. uh, I come from an immigrant farming background. I was born in Mexico, and I didn't really understand the corporate culture or the unwritten rules, workplace rules. Simple things like dressing for different occasions, or how to negotiate salary, or even how to make small talk with higher ups or executives were really mysterious for me. So I learned by observing closely. I asked a lot of questions, especially with trusted mentors, and any that I could find, of course, and accepting that I'd have to make mistakes along the way. Super important. And each misstep became a lesson rather than a defeat. If you look at it that way, you're going to get really far in your career. The other thing is so important to build networks. My parents couldn't introduce me to professional contacts or open doors. They worked on land, not boardrooms. So I had to intentionally be intentional about building relationships, attending networking events, even when it felt super uncomfortable, and and finding ways to add value to others before asking for help. I learned that authenticity was my advantage. People responded to my genuine story and my work ethic. And the other thing, I know we're going to talk about this later, but imposter syndrome is such a big thing. There are countless moments when I questioned whether I belonged in certain rooms, even to recently as becoming CEO. I dealt with it, and I deal with it by focusing on results rather than credentials, by preparing relentlessly for every meeting, and remembering that my unique perspective, shaped by crossing borders, working on farms, bridging two cultures, was actually a strength, not a weakness.
You dropped some jewels there, Robert. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Vivian, why don't you respond? How did you approach the transition from college to your first job? And what surprised you most about entering the professional world?
Well, I'm a pandemic graduate, so I had a lot of surprises, especially because I had a job lined up here in the state of Ohio that was rescinded because it was just the time that during the pandemic things got like that. What surprised me the most was that I had to pivot. The job that I had to jump from being in the profession that I was somewhat trained for into a new industry, which became public health. The way that I got there was by using my network of support that I was able to develop in school, whether that was belonging to different national organizations, tapping into the alumni network here to do mock interviews with me. Like, I was like, hey, I need help. The job market is competitive. I need to be able to market my skills to certain jobs. I was able to obtain a good paying job as a social worker because most folks think that, hey, we don't get paid, but I'm glad I betted on myself. Um, and I would say I struggle with imposter syndrome as well, because I didn't understand the unwritten rules of work. My background is that in my adoptive home, I didn't grow up with people that went to an office job every day. My adoptive mother was retired and my dad did manual labor. Unfortunately, I went back to foster care. So even in those spaces, I went to different people's homes and nobody had an office job. Everyone was somebody that did manual labor. So it was undergrad and grad school that had to teach me how to work in office settings. I would say grad school did that for me more. And I'm really grateful that the Center for Education of Women and the Women of Color Task Force exists because I was able to go to that support network and just ask them questions, get matched with people that can help me navigate workplace cultures that are unknown to me, and also teach me the ones that do and don't fit. I've learned that sometimes it's not me, it's just that I'm not a good fit for this culture, and that's okay. Versus internalizing it as, hey, I'm a first gen, I don't belong, see, there's no point of getting this degree because I can't even blend into these spaces. Rather, it's, hey, I'm learning which culture does work and how to navigate that one the best.
Thank you for that, Vivian. You just reminded me of something that I'm going to ask you all later. If you can remember, you may have to take some time, or these things may not exist, but I definitely want to ask a question later. So thank you for your reflection because it brought about another question. Dr. Susan, for you, can you please respond to how did you approach the transition from college to your first job, and what surprised you most about entering the professional world?
So the benefit of being in a clinical type of profession is that they prepare you for the technical aspects of your job. And so taking care of patients and doing those physical tasks came quite easily. But what was a challenge was just the interprofessional dynamics, talking with physicians about needs of patients, interacting with social workers, physical therapists, all the other healthcare professionals on the team. So I think that is what was a challenge, was being confident in my education and myself as a graduate of the university, and being able to confidently express myself and exchange information that was very valuable to save lives. And I also think that my strong work ethic came from my parents as well. Working shift work as a nurse, even with a bachelor's degree, is very much still blue collarish as a type of role. And so being on time, being dependable, being someone that people can rely on, being honest, being an advocate for people. All of those things I also learned from my parents, and they were very valuable traits as far as going into the nursing profession. And then the other part of your question about what surprised me was that people actually listened. I think that when you come from the University of Michigan and you have that academic preparation and that interaction with, fellow students, whether they're nursing, other disciplines, that people really do listen and value your opinion. And the degree holds a lot of weight, and people understand nothing is giving at the University of Michigan. You have to earn it. And so I think knowing that and being confident in myself once I developed those interpersonal skills with other professionals were definite things that helped me to make that transition successfully.
Shout out to wonderful parents, right? That we learn from. I really tease my nieces and nephews because I don't have children, but I tell them that the things that they're witnessing now, right? Their parents are laying a foundation for them, and they may not understand it right now, but as they grow older, they enter college, they start to work, they'll take all those things and really utilize them. And so shout out to just amazing parents. I want to pivot from talking about your early career and transition to navigating workplace culture, especially as first gen students, first gen people, but also people of color. But before I go into that, I want to ask you all, do you remember any resources on campus when you were a student that like really helped you not only think about like your career, but prepared you to enter the workforce, whether it was, here's all that I did. Can you help me formulate a resume, or someone that really helped you think about the type of role that you would like, or looking for jobs? Do you all remember any of those places on campus that you turned to?
Yes. So I am so grateful and indebted to the School of Social Work's resources. Um, I went on an exposure trip. I learned that you don't do it anymore at the School of Social Work. I'm not sure if they don't any other schools, but an exposure trip took some of the students to different cities and states to connect with social workers that worked in very different sectors to show us what type of job we could have as a social worker. And so the trip that I went to was to DC. So I met social workers that worked unique jobs. Some of them worked for public transportation as a director of public health and safety. I met social workers that worked for the White House, social workers that were the presidents and deans of institutions out there. I met social workers that worked at a regular nonprofit. And I would have never thought to apply for a job in government until I took that trip. In fact, my first job out of grad school was at a public health department, which is a government entity. And I felt more confident going into that role because I'm like, oh, a social worker can be in this space because that's what that exposure trip taught me. I also was always curious that when I went to trips or conferences, I went to school resources. If there was a conference that interested me, I would go to my school like, "Can y'all pay for this?" Because obviously I'm poor. So, and my school always fortunately gave me the money. One of the rules I had when I went to conferences or events is that I never hung around my friends. Okay, like I could see you after this conference. Okay, I am networking. So I was very intentional about networking and collecting business cards. Then I would get back to school and follow up with all of those people whose cards I have taken um, because it was allowing me to expand my network. And some of those relationships I still have to this day. I did go to a lot of stimulations. Some of them included interdisciplinary learning simulations. So I know I took a class on human sex trafficking in the law school, and it had people there across different schools. So law students, doctoral students, pharmacy students, you name it, they was there. And it was great because it prepared me to do what I do now, which is work with people across different disciplines. In my current role, I'm working with lawyers, doctors, nurses, prosecutors, of course, magistrates, commissioners, and sometimes, going back to imposter syndrome, like I'm really in the room having a one-on-one conversation with a lawyer or a high-powered judge. But once again, I felt more confident just because I took these classes that were available as a resource. And once again, I went to all of these conferences talking to big people as well and being comfortable with just putting myself out there to develop my network.
Thank you for that. Anyone else, Robert or Dr. Susan, do you have any resources on campus that you want to shout out that really helped you, that you can think about, that you remember, that was
Well,
impactful?
well, I'm starting to date myself here because I'm thinking way back to my days before, undergrad, and I have to say I wish I had access to these types of programs like the ones we're having today. Like what we're doing today is fantastic. It's important that the university focus on first generation students. It's so important. They need the help. They need that support. Um, I would also say back in my day, I found that if you could find individual mentors, I found some seasoned professionals that took an interest in my development. These weren't real formal mentorship programs like they can be today, but they were really about relationships that I was building organically through work and networking. So those individuals answered my questions. They reviewed my emails before important deliveries and helped me to decode the workplace politics. So I have to also say that, your family and friends are super important to be part of, they have to be part of your support circle because they provide the emotional support during the inevitable setbacks and self-doubt that happens. And if in my case, my parents were also pivotal in my development. They couldn't advise me on corporate strategy or things like that, but they were there because of the motivation. There was that overall motivation that that was fueled by their sacrifices. So that's what I would say about that.
What about you, Dr. Susan?
I would say, as I transitioned to a graduate student, doing my master's and doctorate on campus, I utilized the Sweetland Writing Center. I don't know if it's still called that or if it's still in existence, but it was a great way to learn how to write academically. I know that African Americans, we tend to be storytellers. So I used to get a lot of critique about my writing, saying it wasn't academic enough. And so the Sweetland Writing Center was a great resource to learn that. And I will say I had to take an LS&A class as an elective. And the best class I took outside of nursing was a linguistics class. And I, to this day, can pronounce names of patients who no one else can. So, you look at these, electives you have to take, and you try to think of something that would be interesting. And that class taught me so much about pronunciation and those types of things. And I still use that resource to this day. And when you're dealing front-facing positions with patients, people that are vulnerable, being able to say their name appropriately and actually asking them if I'm saying it correctly, just giving that extra touch to people who probably don't have people ask them that. That was just very important to me, to make people feel that yes, you're a person with an illness, but you're also an individual. So establishing that bond and relationship with people by being able to pronounce their names or even ask them, okay, tell me how to say this because I want to make sure we have a good interaction, during this particular time, was something that was very beneficial. So I would recommend, if you need an elective, take a linguistics class because it's still, to this day, is something that I use every day.
Thank you. I'm so proud that you all remember these things, right? That actually still exist. And Robert, although you didn't have the exposure as a student, you most certainly have the exposure as an alum, and so continue to tap into the resources that are provided here. We have about 10 more minutes to engage in dialogue, and so I want to shift from early career and transition to navigating workplace culture. And so I'll start with you, Dr. Susan. How did you learn to adapt to your workplace culture, especially if it differed from your college experience or your personal background?
That's an interesting question. I think as you become more experienced in your profession and gain more confidence, those are things that come along with the process. I definitely think I realized I was much more of a leader than I ever thought I was because when I would speak and advocate for my patients, people actually would listen. And, and so I think it's very important in the professional realm to be able to express yourself clearly, know what your role is, and be an advocate. In any position you work in, there's going to be people that cross your path, whether it's a patient, a colleague, or someone who may be facing a particular challenge and don't have the resources or skills you do. So I think it's very important to be able to speak up for others, speak up for yourself, and trust your education and your training that that you will be able to be successful in your given field. I don't know if they answered the question but that is, that is what I would say, is that it just comes with practice and time, and being an advocate is truly something very important.
It most certainly answers the question. Vivian, you want to jump in and tell us about how did you learn to adapt to your workplace culture, especially if it differed from your college experience or background?
Sure. So the good thing about being a foster care alumni is that you learn to adapt to different environments, to different people, and the like. So that's what I do in my career, is that I just learn to adapt. Sometimes if I adapt and I just find that it's not working, I'm comfortable with leaving. And some of that adaptability just comes with being vulnerable enough to tell your boss, like, hey, I don't understand, or if my boss tries to correct me about something culturally, that's the time that I, take as an opportunity of, well, I've never worked in this type of environment. Are there some things that you can tell me that I need to know? Now, if it's a good boss, they're going to let you know. It's what I found. And if they're not the best boss because they feel like you should know it already, then hey, I'll try to build a relationship with somebody else that can tell me about the workplace culture. For example, right now, the government entity that I'm working at right now is a court. And human resources was very blunt during my orientation by telling me to not trust no one. When I asked my boss to talk to when I needed while she's away on maternity leave, she told me the same thing, which is not to trust anyone. She said it's really just a job that you come in, do your work, and you leave. And I know that's not ideal for anyone.
Oh, it seems like Vivian is having some technical difficulties. Let's give it a moment and see if she's able to. Well, Robert, while we're waiting for Vivian, do you want to respond to the question, how did you learn
Sure.
to adapt to your workplace culture, especially if it differed from
Sure.
your college experience or personal background?
Absolutely. It's such an important question. Learning to adapt to the workplace culture was one of the hardest things and really most necessary skills I developed. Um, the gap between my background working on and living on an avocado farm and then navigating corporate America was enormous. Uh, and no one really handed me a translation guide. There's no way to identify or a roadmap for that. Um, but what I would say is observe before you act. That's one of the things I did right away. I spent my first few months studying my new environment, watching intently, taking notes, just like my days at college. I studied how people communicated in emails, how they dressed, how they interacted in meetings, what was said versus what was meant. I learned that corporate culture has its own language. There's that, again, that phrasing, the unspoken rules about hierarchy and communicating protocols and accepting behavior that first generation professionals just are unable to decode alone. And so I made a point to really understand the customs before trying to reshape them in any way. The other thing too, we talked about this, is asking questions without shame. You really have to embrace that early on. I abandoned pride and I asked basic questions that others seem to know instinctively. And what does the acronym mean? And what's expected? What's the expected turnaround time for this type of request? Or what should I wear in this event? I reframed that unknowing, that ignorance, I guess you call it, as curiosity, and which made it easier to seek clarification. And people really respected that genuine effort to learn. And then I would say the last thing I would say too is leverage. I was leveraging my differences. I was leveraging how, me being a different person than others. Over time, I realized that my outsider perspective was actually valuable, that I could bridge cultural gaps, connect with diverse employees authentically, and bring fresh thinking to problems. My resilience and adaptability forged from navigating unfamiliar territory became leadership strengths, and I stopped trying to blend in completely and started showing up as my full self. So I would say to you all, be your genuine self. You don't have to change for anybody. Hold on to your core values, because regardless of where you are, what organization you're going to, if those core values from that organization do not align with yours, then it's okay to maybe stay there for a little bit and then move on to a place that actually does align with their values completely.
I love this idea of well, not it's not an idea. It's actually a practice of observing before you act in the workplace. And I will say one of my mentors told me in undergrad that when you're starting a new job, for the first year should be your observation period, right? You most certainly build relationships, but you kind of sit back and you watch for the key players, the influencers. You kind of figure out how the organization moves. And then the second year, you most certainly can be vocal within that time frame, but when you're stepping into your second year, you can begin to act upon what you observed. But most certainly, that observation period is really important. So thank you so much for sharing that. Welcome back, Vivian. So sorry you were cut off. We moved along with the conversation, but so happy to see that you're back. Dr. Susan, I noticed in the chat you stated that the best professional advice you receive about challenges in the workplace is to pause, reflect, and then respond. Do you want to expound upon that, or is that just a solid statement?
I think it's a solid statement, but I think oftentimes as a new professional, um, when you receive feedback, you want to not always take it so personally. And so I had to learn that was a valuable lesson for me, is that sometimes feedback, you may not want to hear it, but it may be something very productive. But it's also about how you respond. So I attended a leadership conference, a nursing leadership conference while I was working in Ann Arbor still. And there was a speaker. And that was basically something that they shared, is that when you receive criticism or feedback or constructive feedback and employee evaluation, that first response is usually probably not the one that you want to lead with. You want to take time, you want to pause. You actually want to take time to kind of listen and try to understand where that, feedback or criticism, whatever you want to describe it as, is coming from. You want to reflect, because you definitely don't want to just retaliate or respond too quickly, because you want to seek clarity to make sure you're understanding, what that person is trying to articulate to you, and then respond. Because most of the time in these situations, it's probably not what you thought it was. That feedback or that criticism is probably something helpful. And we all have to learn the skill of being able to communicate empathetically and use our words wisely. And so oftentimes it's very challenging to give criticism and feedback to people. And so I definitely think that task of just pausing, reflecting, and responding allows you not to respond too quickly to something that wasn't maybe as big a deal as you thought it was. So I think I still use that to this day. I write an email and I let it sit in my drafts. You don't hit send too quickly because you don't know where it's going to end up.
That's
So
true.
that's another nugget, another jewel to share with the group. I have some
Listen,
emails in draft form where I express myself and then I catch my breath. Okay, Susan, now you can go back to being that professional that you need to be. So
it's a way to get it out. And you know what? I think when I talk to colleagues, I think we all share that sentiment of not responding so quickly or spending a lot of time in our responses, right? And so I feel elated that you two share in that this is a way for me to get it out. And then my real response is here. So thank you for that. I want to do two things. We're going to close. So I have a closing question, but before I want to pose a question that was entered in the chat. And so if you all would like to respond to it, sure. If one person, then please go ahead and do so. So the question is, as first generation professionals, how do you set boundaries between work and personal life, especially when you might feel pressure to prove yourself or work harder than others? That's a great question, by the way.
Great question. Um, for me, this is the second job I've had since grad school where I feel like the less they know about me, the better. Um, and sometimes it can be a bit much because, hey, I want to go out to eat lunch with people, but my role is created in such a way that I really don't have time to have a lunch buddy. Um, and it's good because it allows me to have built-in boundaries with my work where, hey, nothing I say about my personal life can be weaponized against me because in some workplaces, that's something that can truly happen. So it's very important that when people ask you, like, oh, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it was great. What did you do? Oh, socialize with friends. I'm able to keep it vague as possible because while we want to say show up to work as your authentic self, I'm authentic, but it doesn't mean that they get to know me on a personal level. And that's okay. You're at work and you also have to be mindful that um, there's an image in some of our careers that we must give off. Once again, I've been working in government for a few years. So my Facebook, I don't really post certain things on Facebook because I know my job can be looking. I change my name on social media or I have a burner account so I can express myself without repercussions. And once again, I like it that way because my job should not have access to me. Um, I would say I don't want them to have access to every part of my life. And I advise people who are going into certain fields to know that that's okay. And for some workplaces, it's needed.
Robert, what about you? How do you set boundaries between work and personal life?
Well, I'm a living example of what not to do. Uh, uh, and what I mean by that is that when I was moving up the ranks here, and I did it very quickly because I would take on any job I could. I would volunteer for any project, anything in every department that needed help. I was going to do it because I wanted to learn it, and also I wanted to let everyone know that I want to be invaluable and also help anyone who was there because I had the foresight to think down the line when C-suite positions became available, that the people around me would say, "Oh yeah, that's the guy. That's the person who's going to take over. We're happy that he's taking over that because he's helped us over the years and he knows what he's doing. He's knowledgeable." The problem with that is that there are trade-offs. The trade-offs were that I could not really spend time with family, friends, um, that I in a case many times I allowed my health to go awry, right? Like I wouldn't work out, I'd eat the wrong things, you know, because you're working late hours and you got to have pizza at 11 p.m., right? Um, and so if so fast forward, I would say that if I were to do that again, I would try to balance it out. Um, Meaning that it's important to balance the work life with your personal life. And you want to be in a place with that where that's allowed. And if one of your largest or biggest values is family, as an example, then you want to be at a place that allows for that to happen, right? You want to be in an organization where family to them is important too for their employees. So um, so now in present day, now that I'm in a CEO position, I tell that story because it's important for everyone in my organization to have that flexibility, to have the ability to balance personal with the work life. So there you go.
Can I add on to my answer? Because that's good, Robert. Uh, I say that this to those entering the helping profession. So think psychology, think social work, um, any social services career. um, is that sometimes we allow our jobs to have too much access to us, like answering phone calls with clients at 8 o'clock at night or answering the phones on weekends, and making yourself available on weekends to go take a client shopping or something. I know with my first job out of undergrad, I did that and I got so burnt out. It wasn't until I got an amazing boss who taught me that, hey, give these clients the resources to be able to call the 911, 211, whatever crisis line that is available. She taught me that I should be working with my clients in such a way that they won't need me. If you're in a helping profession, your job is really to work yourself out of a job with a client, meaning that you have to teach them, you have to empower them with the skills and tools to be able to do things on their own. And you're not doing that if you're always available to them. Another thing for us women, don't make yourself too available at work. And I say this to the women specifically because that's something that we're known to do and it's expected of us to sit on committees at work. And we put in so much labor. And then we too don't have enough time for our families or for our social life and the like. So having boundaries is important. You don't have to answer that phone call after work. You text them saying, is it a crisis? Is it an emergency? Oh, it's not. I'll talk to you on Monday.
And I'll just quickly add, for the majority of my career, I had a commute. And so I would say that was the best thing for me, to leave things at work and then be able to pick up my home life when I made it home. I love all types of music. So finding a good radio station to listen to on my drive home, that was very important. I've actually been working remotely for the past 5 years. That's helped to establish boundaries with my coworkers because I think I stated I work for a university in Oregon. I've never met my boss face to face. And so the value of working remote, which there are tons of remote positions out there now, it helps you to maintain some of those boundaries and some of that personal kind of space. I do share some things, of course, because just through the course of interactions and getting to know people, you share things. But that has been something I've appreciated. I have a very strong circle of friends. I'm very close with my family, so I have other ways to decompress, after work. But if, working remotely, I cannot speak highly enough of it. I think I work much harder working remotely than in an office because you go in the morning, you start with coffee, you stand around, then it's time for lunch in 3 hours, and then it's time to leave and go home. And you've really not worked a whole lot. And working remotely, I think I work a lot more and more productive without having the busyness of an office. So, but it doesn't meet for everybody's personalities. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think it definitely does help you to maintain boundaries when you work remotely or have that commute as well. And you have time to decompress before getting to work and then getting back home to your family or what other things you have going on in your life.
Thank you all for this conversation. We are a little bit over time, but I do want us to kind of close. And so I'll do a practice that I do when I'm working with students. And the question should be responded to in one word, which might be difficult. But if there is a piece of advice that would have helped you after graduation, what would it be in one word or a phrase, right? For each of you.
I'm gonna start with a phrase, if that's okay. Uh, your story is not something to overcome. It's your greatest competitive advantage.
I would say to take more chances. I think I was, I'm very social, but not as confident when I was 21, 22, just right out of college, as I am now as a 50-plus-year-old woman. So I would say take those chances. Nothing, ridiculous by any means, but I think be brave and take more chances and trust yourself that you can be successful in what you want to do.
And Vivian, for you? I think Vivian might be.
And
Oh, sorry, we couldn't hear you. Start again, Vivian.
can you hear me?
Go right ahead.
Oh, all right. I would say to have tunnel vision. And that may sound odd, but what I mean by that is don't allow anyone to talk you out of your goals that you have for yourself. If you're going out in the universe and telling the universe, I'm going to have this type of job, it's going to come to you. if you go out in the universe saying, hey, I'm going to do great at work, I'm going to be able to integrate my education into my next role, you say that. And when others try to talk you out of that, saying, oh, that's not realistic, that's not going to happen for you, you have got to be able to tune that noise out. But like again, I like to call it tunnel vision. I'm ain't nothing to see, on either side in the tunnel. You're looking straight ahead.
Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences, lessons learned, insights, and also for being tremendous alums of the university and giving back in such this impactful way. We'll move forward with our programming, and that's the end for our panel. Thank you all again.
Yes, thank you so much to all of our panelists for everything that they have shared. I'm going to share this resource screen. All right, we can see it says resources, right? Yeah. Okay, excellent. So for the next couple of minutes, we're going to share a couple of critical resources that we think are really important for students. If you can't stay, we'll have a recording of this and we'll be able to share all of these resources with you as well. So I will pass it on to Joelle.
Hi, beautiful people. I hope everyone's doing well. I work at the University Career Center where we serve all students in all schools and colleges and alumni 2 years post-graduation. I'm currently sharing my screen right now. You can see UCAN, which is powered through People Grove. And so this is something that has been around for 10 years, and we are so excited for this opportunity to share with you how you can actually connect with alumni. In the chat, it was so powerful to hear people wanting to connect, continue that legacy of being first gen and seeing other first gen individuals. So I'm actually going to do a live action demo for you all today. So once you create an account, as a student, you will be able to see different locations of alumni, industry, fields of interest. But if you go to more filters, this was very intentional with us having, sorry, my echo is talking to me. This was very intentional on our end where we were able to identify affiliations. So when you go to affiliations, any guesses in the chat just for fun, how many first gen alumni that have opted into the system once I push apply, da, 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 this morning, wow, we've been approving some new users. We had 850 first gen week. Whoop, whoop. This is amazing. It's jumped to 863 first gen alum all across the globe that you can connect with and share that community and identity. And I just think that is so powerful. And this is just one of the wonderful resources that we provide. And so I know Tara is going to go back to the PowerPoint. I'll stop my sharing here. And I'm excited to share with you more of our wonderful tools at the University Career Center. And so I did put it in the chat, our information to create an account, that QR code you're welcome to scan, but it's really helping you catalyze those connections with alumni and professionals. And so Tara, if you could go to the next slide, I'd really appreciate it. And then this is just some simple overview because I want to be respectful of the other wonderful resources. So at the University Career Center, we have a wonderful platform called Handshake. It's UMichJoinHandshake.com. You can scan that QR code and it will take you to our general website. But here in Handshake, you're able to schedule one-on-one coaching appointments, whether it's looking for mock interviews, job searching, internship searching, or Joelle, I'm not sure what I want to do with my career. That's okay. We have exploration appointments to help you find that opportunities that align with your interests and values. We also have in Handshake, we're really proud of this. We co-developed this with the I Am First group on campus. It's a first gen toolkit around career resources. So you can go to our resource center and see our community toolkits there where it's really tailored to you as you're thinking about different career opportunities or looking at resume support or scholarships and learn about other really wonderful tools. Like I mentioned earlier, we can help you search for internships and jobs. And then we also host large-scale programming for our job and internship fairs or just general events with employers. And I'm so glad I was able to model UCAN with you all today. I think that is just a wonderful resource for you. And I so appreciate the wonderful panelists that shared their stories. And you can potentially connect with them there too. And I'll pass it on to the next person. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you see me? I'm Janice Rubin, Associate Director for University Relations at the Alumni Association, and we have lots of great resources for students and alumni. So we have student engagement opportunities. We have a new ambassador program that helps us inform our student programming. Hopefully the students on here know about our Welcome Wednesdays, where you can stop by on certain Wednesdays and get a free bagel, free hot coffee and tea, and learn about other resources that support student development on campus. Blue books, we have study spaces in our building. If you're looking for a quiet location, definitely stop by the Alumni Center, which is right next to the Michigan League. And then, of course, we have employment opportunities, both during the year, during the summer, and then up at Camp Michigania, our alumni camp. So next slide. So if you'd like to learn more about student programming, please text Go Blue to this number, and we will keep you informed of all the great student events that are coming up. For the rest of the semester, we have a couple of more Welcome Wednesdays. Then we have the study days where we do special events in the center for students during like reading period and exam period. So please sign up for this to get information about those upcoming activities. Next slide. We have an alumni career program. What we understand is that your journey as an alum begins while you're here on campus as a student. And so we offer programming for you while you're here. Most of our programming is open to students. And then as you transition off campus into your alumni role, then we have additional services to support you as well. Next slide. We also, of course, have lifelong learning. And this used to be our education program, but now we call it lifelong learning because curiosity never graduates. That's their really great tagline. And I love that because it's so true. And so we have been doing some really great alum one-on-one mini courses. One of them was this year is the science of sleep. I think last year's one-on-one was focused on the history of the university. And so we did a field trip with participants and took them on a walking tour of campus. So we have lots of great programming that's very much curated in different areas. So please go take a picture of the QR code and learn more about what we're doing at the Alumni Association. Next slide. And I can talk about CW. I used to be at CW for 19 years, so I certainly can talk about this resource. They have free career and education counseling. It's an alternative to some of the resources on campus. CW is actually located on Liberty Street at the corner of Liberty and Division. So they're away from campus. And they have the Council for Non-Traditional Students that looks at first gen, but also student parents, commuter students. So they provide services across the board. They have workshops. They do an annual financial education series. They also have scholarships and fellowships and emergency funding. And that's really important, graduation grants, emergency funding, and they also have study space as well. Next slide. And then the Center for Educational Outreach, they are our recruitment arm that conducts outreach to the different schools, high schools, to create pipelines that will hopefully get us more students, more non-traditional students, more first-gen students. And so we're happy to have them come on board and provide some resources. So definitely take a picture of their QR code and learn more about what they do for campus visits. If you have some friends and family who are first-gens and you would like for them to learn more about coming to Michigan. And I think that is our last slide. Yes.
Yes, so thank you all again for attending this event. We hope to see everybody at the other events during First Gen Celebration Week, and have a good night.